Hey folks, it's Dan from the Conan Chronology here. I've been thinking a lot recently about how pretty much every video I've put up on this YouTube channel is about Savage Sword of Conan, so I thought I'd spend some time giving you guys a tour of my sword and sorcery library, if nothing else than to prove to myself that I do actually read more than just Savage Sword. So I thought I'd go over a couple of things with you guys that are in my like Conan the Barbarian and Sword and Sorcery library. I partially wanted to do this because there's a lot of really cool like paratext and criticism out there, and I'd love to get the word out about it. I've been into comic books since I was about 10 years old, and I've been into Conan for like maybe 10 or 12 years. I think in 2014 or 2015, I picked up this Complete Chronicles of Conan. This is the Centenary edition. And I remember reading Queen of the Black Coast in a Boulder Barnes and Noble after dropping my wife off at work. For some reason, I had gotten it in my head that that was the first Conan story, and obviously it's not. But I read it, and I realized I read the whole thing while just sitting there, and I was kind of hooked from then on out. So I bought this guy, even though it is huge. I don't think it cost me very much, so it's a great investment. The Del Rey versions are kind of preferred by most people these days, but I really like this one. It's a lot of fun. It's purely the REH Conan with the fragments included, but none of the Elsbreg de Camp edits. And the other place I started was with these Dark Horse Savage Sword trades. I'm tempted to call them omnis because they're so big, but they each have about 12 issues within them. And for the longest time, I had these five. Someone on the internet had given me a random recommendation saying like check out the Savage Sword of Conan, and I thought that sounds kind of cool. So I checked out the original one, and I think I bought this for like $20 back in the day, as their like the MSRP is $20. And I really liked it, so I bought the second one, and then I bought the third one, and then I think some time passed, and I bought the fourth and fifth. That's probably my favorite cover of all of them is Earl Norm's Legions of the Dead cover. And eventually I got a fifth one, and I read them all, and I really liked them, and I kind of, burned out and decided that's probably where I'm going to stop. I don't think I'll pick up the other ones. And so for a while, this was all the Conan that I had. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I don't know if you guys are aware, there's a column on a music website called Stereo Gum. This guy, Tom Brehan, writes something called the Number Ones. And every Monday, he picks a new number one in the charts and goes, like, he tells the story of it, and he goes through the history of it and why it's important, and he tells interesting facts and tidbits, and he ranks them all. And I was sitting there thinking, well, it could be cool to read more Conan. What if I basically did the number ones, but for Conan the Barbarian stories? So I figured I would read every Conan the Barbarian story in. I ended up starting with the DeCamp timeline order, kind of mixed with the Darkstorm chronology. It's not important. I started reading all of those, and that's when I got really hardcore into Conan and into Sword and Sorcery. So the rest of this I've collected over about the past year and a half, I'd say since like July 2024. I did end up getting most of the rest of these Dark Horse Savage Sword trades. The Titan Omnis that they're putting out are really cool, but I started with this bunch and I really like the colored spines, so I kind of figured I would just follow this one all the way through. Most of them are getting really expensive now. Like some of them you can get for 60 or $70. A lot of them are charging about $100, and some of them are on the internet for literally like $600 or $700. So that's why I haven't completed my collection yet. Most of the Roy Thomas stuff ends at volume 6. He writes through the first 70-ish issues, but don't sleep on volume 7. It's really excellent, and I gotta say volume 9 has an incredible Bill Sienkiewicz cover. That thing is so cool, even though I don't think I've ever seen Conan wear armor like that even one time in a single comic. Now, my collection is complete through volume 14, and then I'm missing 15, 16, and 17, but I have 18 through the rest of them. And I love these things. Eventually, I'm going to try to get all of them, but with the prices being what they are right now, it's just not going to happen really anytime soon. Now, I do have a couple of vintage Conan paperbacks that I got for a pretty good price. I found these at, there's a store, it's primarily a record shop near me called Black and Red, and that thing was like my home record shop all through high school and college. That's the place that got me into awesome bands like Sabbath when I was 18 years old. But they have a really good book selection as well, and they have really awesome employees who will just strike up a conversation with you about anything, and they're all super nerdy. So I do have a couple of the Lancers. I've got The Return of Conan. Unfortunately, this book, like Conan the Avenger, it sucks, man. It's terrible. As far as pastiches go, it's one of the absolute worst. But man, I do love the cover. It's got that Frank Frazetta cover with the blue up top here. Now, my copy, unfortunately, someone drew a 10 over the volume 8 to represent the renumbered chronology. But I think this thing was only $5, so I'm gonna have to get a better copy at some point. And then I also have Conan of the Isles as far as the Lancers go. Once again, great cover. It's a fine pastiche. I know some people absolutely hate this one. I think Grammaticus Books, who's a sword and sorcery booktuber, I think he despises this one, but I think it's all right. I've got a later printing of Conan the Adventurer with some Howard and DeCamp stories in it. I'm not sure when this one is from, but I think it's from the 70s or 80s because it looks a little more modern. Conan and the Spider God by L. Sprague de Camp, but actually probably more by Catherine Crook de Camp, who I will defend. I think this one's pretty good. Conan of Aquilonia, the Ace printing, sucks. And then I do have a couple of the Ace printings. Because I am a middle school teacher and I do not, I'm not drowning in money. These I kind of just pick up whenever I can find one at a good price. There's a spot here in Denver called the Auditorium, and they're like an oddity shop and a vintage bookshop and stuff. And they have some really, really cool selections. So whenever I go there, I find my main problem is which one of the things am I going to buy? Because I'll usually allow myself to spend 5 or 10 or $20. But I've got Conan the Warrior, Conan the Wanderer, Conan the Freebooter, and Conan of Cimmeria. I'm hoping to eventually complete this set, but right now I've just got these four. I love the super 70s covers and the different colors for each one. That's super charming. I also have these more recent printings of Red Nails and Hour of the Dragon. Red Nails, obviously an incredible classic. You can't do better than Red Nails. And Hour of the Dragon is pretty good, even though it is mostly just a retread of all of Conan's greatest hits. These are Berkeley medallion printings, and I don't feel like I see these a ton, but I do know these Ken Kelly covers are really cool, and they're often mistaken for Frank Frazetta covers, but they're really, really awesome by themselves. I don't buy a lot of these, but I do have a couple of other sword and sorcery vintage books. I've got a couple of John Carter books from Edgar Rice Burroughs. These paperback printings of the John Carter of Mars series are pretty cool. I have the first two, Princess of Mars and the Gods of Mars, and I'm trying to find the third one in this series, this specific printing that's the Warlord of Mars. I'm kind of done with John Carter. Like, I really like the first one, and then the second one was fine, and the third one I didn't really like very much, so I'm probably not going to go past 3 on these. But I did come across, I think, 11 of them in a bookshop one time, and the guy didn't want to break up the collection, so I only have these 2 for now. I do have a hardback version of The Gods of Mars and The Warlord of Mars, which I think is kind of interesting because those are books 2 and 3, so I'm wondering if A Princess of Mars has its own printing from this line by itself. I'm not sure, but what an incredible cover there. You have, I assume this is Tars Tarkas down here and John Carter up here fighting some ape-like Martians. It's even got a wraparound cover. This thing is so cool, even if the content within is, kind of subpar. I'm not a John Carter hater or anything. I just don't think it's super compelling all the time. I've got one Fritz Lieber book, Swords and Deviltry. I got this at the Auditorium as well. I haven't actually read any Farfad and the Grey Mouser yet. I always tell myself I'm going to, and then there's like another cool thing that catches my attention, and then I push it back. So I haven't actually read this one yet, but I will read it eventually. And then I also bought a copy of Thongor and the Wizard of Lemuria, or just The Wizard of Lemuria, by Lynn Carter. This one is a really, really slim volume, and it's got a pretty banging cover with like a dragon thing, and a bow and arrow, and a slick Jetsons ass vehicle, like a hover car. These things are pretty cool, although I gotta say I'm not a huge fan of Thongor. I did review this one for my blog, and it's fine, I guess. I don't feel like I wasted my time or money, but I'm not gonna buy more of these. Now I've got all of the Titan novels. I wasn't originally interested in these really at all until I ran out of stuff to read and I lived 2 minutes from a Barnes & Noble. So I've got all of these except for Blood of the Serpent right now. And they're kind of a mixed bag. The Spawn of the Serpent God was fine. It was okay. Songs of the Slain, I was sad. I thought had a cool premise and has a really good opening, and then is just not very interesting. Uh, City of the Dead is an absolute fucking banger. This book is two different novels, and it's so fucking good. You have to check it out. As far as Conan pastiches go, these two are like top five. And John C. Hawking commented on my articles about them. He seems like a super sweet guy. Really good writer, and I hope we get more from him with these. He has written an ebook called Black Starlight, and as I understand, is working on some other stuff. And the other one is Cult of the Obsidian Moon by James Lovegrove. This one is also, like, it's okay. It's another one of their crossovers that doesn't really cross over with the comic series at all, but it's okay. It's a fun read. I do have two older copies of Conan books as well. I have Conan and the Swordsman, which is a Conan book entirely devoid of Robert E. Howard. This one is by Elsberg de Camp, Lynn Carter, and Bjorn Nyberg, and was apparently discarded from the Tempe, Arizona library system. I know there are serious DeCamp detractors out here, but I actually think this one is pretty good. It's got Legions of the Dead. It's got People of the Summit. It has the Star of Kerala, the Ivory Goddess, as well as an essay, Hyborian Names, by Elsberg de Camp. As far as Conan pastiches go, not a terrible collection, although there are a couple of mediocre ones in here. Although I know some people are going to downvote this video right away just because I said nice things about DeCamp. It's okay. It's cool. I got it for a pretty good price. And then I also have Carl Edward Wagner's The Road of Kings, which I feel like most people will agree is one of the absolute best Conan pastiches, thematically speaking, as well as in terms of just like sword and sorcery action storytelling. This thing is really, really cool. And as far as like 70s, 80s Conan novels go, it is excellent. Now, I do have some collections / criticism / history of Conan and sword and sorcery and stuff like that. And these, I think, are some of the hidden gems. I picked up a collection of Howard's horror work when I was down in Texas this last summer. I went to go check Dallas out and go to a bunch of comic shops and stuff because I missed Howard days, and that was a really fun time. But I picked this up in a half-price books, and my main takeaway from that is that half-price books should be everywhere. We don't have them in Colorado, and I am so sad about that because so many good deals there. Now, these two go together. This is the Spell of Conan and the Blade of Conan, which are two collections that were edited by Elsberg de Camp and put together in, I think, 1978, 1979, that area. And they have cool reflective covers, so I'm sorry if the glare gets on there and washes this one out. We've got authors like Paul Anderson, Lee Brackett, Fritz Lieber, just kind of like a murderer's row of like 70s sword and sorcery pastiche and 70s sword and sorcery criticism. These two have a lot of really cool things in them. My favorite from these are 3 stories that are called Swordly Stories in the middle of the Spell of Conan. One of them is called The Testament of Snefru. One of them is called The Lion's Bridge, and one of them is called When Set Fled. They're all very short, but they take place kind of within the world of the Hyborian Age, peripherally to Conan stories that are happening. But if you've ever wondered, after reading The Hour of the Dragon, when Conan commandeers a fisherman's boat, what happened to that guy? Well, you will find that out in the Testament of Snefru. That dude's life was immediately ruined in a hilarious way, and that guy hates Conan for the rest of his life. The Lion's Bridge is really cool. That one takes place, I think, during the Scarlet Citadel, where a person holds back a force invading Aquilonia, and When Set Fled is extremely short by Fritz Lieber, and it is gloriously violent and really cool. But if you can find these for a good price, I would definitely recommend them for kind of the hardcore sword and sorcery fans library. Weird Tales by Bobby Deary is super cool. If you're interested in weird tales as a platform and as almost like its own genre, then Bobby Deary's writing is super excellent. I think I'm saying that right. I've never heard it said out loud, so I don't know if it's Derry or Deary. I always say Deary to myself. But this has a ton of different essays by Bobby Deary about Robert E. Howard and all the other excellent authors in Weird Tales. I don't think I've ever seen this one for very expensive, so you should definitely check it out if you're interested in Weird Tales. I cannot say enough good things about Robert E. Howard, The Life and Times of a Texas Author, by Willard Oliver. This dude is so cool. I really hope to meet him at Howard Days next year so that he can sign this copy for me, because this is like, as far as I'm concerned, the definitive history of Robert E. Howard. This thing is so good. And I can't tell you how many notes along the way that I've made and have referenced it so many dozens of times on my blog, because this thing is excellent and it covers all the Conan stuff and all the Bran McMorrin stuff. And I mean, it just goes throughout his entire life, and it's really even handed and really well researched. So I cannot say enough good things about this. I know it looks really hefty, but it is also a pretty brisk read as well. It's organized into chapters of about a year. And it's really excellent for a Robert E. Howard fan. Marvel Comics: The Untold Story by Sean Howe, I would definitely recommend to you if you are a fan of the Conan the Barbarian comic books, as I am. This tells kind of the whole story of Roy Thomas acquiring the Robert E. Howard Conan license and then expanding it and eventually quitting and then coming back. This thing is a really good history for any comic fan or fan of Marvel, and it's extremely well written. You will get to know all the really cool characters behind the scenes from Marvel through, like from the Silver Age on. It's really excellent. Speaking of Marvel Comics, I feel like I'm pretty frequently waving the flag for Roy Thomas, which I definitely don't have to do. The guy has received his flowers. But his book series, Barbarian Life, a literary biography of Conan the Barbarian, is really excellent if you want to dive into the Conan the Barbarian 70s series more. There are 3 volumes of it, and volumes 1 and 2 basically cover the first half of his 115 issue run on Conan the Barbarian, and this one covers the second half, whereas volume 3 covers some Savage Sword stuff and has some goodies. This one's a lot less essential than the first 2. But these are really engaging reads, and he writes about a page or two about the backstory for each issue, so they're really digestible. And I can't tell you how often I have cited this one when writing about Savage Sword. I know I pulled a lot of my Conan Conquers the Comics Code stuff from that, because he talks extensively about how the Comics Code affected the books, and these are really excellent. Speaking of Roy Thomas and Conan the Barbarian, look, I have never really been an omnibus fan. I much prefer trade paperbacks or single issues. But when I decided I was actually going to read all of Roy Thomas's Conan the Barbarian, Titan had started putting out these omnis, and I thought, you know what better time to pick them up? Originally, I thought they were going to be way too expensive. The MSRP is like $125 on these, but if you go to Organic Price Books, you can get them for like, I think it's $83 is how much I paid for most of them. But they are big and fat and beautifully reprinted. Like, the covers are amazing. The paper quality is super good. One thing I don't love about reprinting Bronze Age comics is the coloring. I really like the newsprint and how it almost kind of mellows out some of the colors on the pages. But these look really excellent. They also have pretty extensive essays by Roy Thomas at the start of each one, and then they've got some goodies in the back of each one. There's a few more essays. There's some pencil sketches by Barry Windsor Smith and John Buscema and such. But these are super excellent for reading through all of Roy Thomas's run. I have the first 4 because that's the end of Roy's 115 issues, and I don't hear great things about J.M. DeMatteis. He picks up after Roy, and honestly, I'm not like the hugest fan of all of Roy's Conan and Belit saga. I'm going to write about this at some point, but I do think it has some kind of uneven parts. And I gotta say, I might be the only one who feels like this, but after issue 100, which is the cover for volume 4, Roy has 15 more issues to go until he's done on the book, and most of them, I don't like them very much. I feel like he really shot his shot with issue 100 and the death of Belit, and the 115th, the 115th issue is really, really good. It's a great send-off for Roy and his time on Conan, but the rest of them, I think they're kind of lackluster. So I'm probably eventually going to pick up Christopher Priest's run on this. I think it starts with volume 7, but I'm probably going to skip J.M. DeMatteis and Michael Fleischer and the other folks who worked on it in between those. I also have 2 Dark Horse reprints of The Savage Sword of Kull, which are the Kull backup stories. that were printed in Savage Sword of Conan, and I can't say much about these because I read them a long time ago and I haven't opened them since. As time goes on, I'm kind of less interested in Cull. I'm not 100% sure why, but yeah, I remember them being fine. If you're a pretentious former English major like me, you might really like some of the criticism that's out there about Conan. The first one I picked up was Conan Meets the Academy by Jonas Prida. This thing is incredible and has some really excellent academic articles about Conan. It is dedicated to Gary Gygax. We've got stuff from Jeffrey Shanks, who is a total mensch, totally cool guy, about archaeology. We have stuff from Frank Kaufman about poetic and epistolary origins of Conan. This thing, if you like the academic side of things, this is probably the best place to start as far as Conan paratext or criticism goes. The Dark Barbarian, which was edited by Don Herron, is also really excellent, especially the title essay, The Dark Barbarian by Don Herron. That thing is really, really good. I don't cite this one as often as I cite some other ones on my blog, but this is also a really good entry. And then Hither Came Conan by Bob Byrne and Bill Ward and Howard Andrew Jones and Jason Waltz. This thing is super cool, not just because of this dynamite cover. I love the font, and I love this drawing of Conan, and I assume that's Zenobia from Hour of the Dragon. But this thing is a really good companion to rereading Conan stories. It is basically adaptations of blog posts that they made together, where they have different conversations about the stories themselves, and then there will be little bits in between. But they do go through all of the Howard stories, and including stuff like Wolves Beyond the Border. And this thing is a really fun read, especially if you've read the Howard stories before and you want to go back through them and read this alongside as a companion. You could do a lot worse than this one. Also, Bob Byrne reached out via email. Super nice guy. I'm not going to go over my single issues. I have tons of single issues out there. I've been collecting comics since I was 10, and really hardcore since I hit high school, and I'm 34 now, so I've had some time to collect. But the trade paperbacks from Jim Zub's current Titan run are really, really excellent. I eventually stopped buying the trades, and now I am buying the single issues because I really felt like I should be supporting the awesome work that Jim and everybody else is doing. These are excellent, though, especially if you have never read Conan. I think these are a really good starting point for modern comic book readers. For example, one of them takes place as Conan is grieving Belit in the aftermath of Queen of the Black Coast, but it actually takes place in Shadazar. Conan has gone back to thieving, so you can pick it up, and it's really enriched by knowing the original stories, but it's totally readable by itself. I also have one Dark Horse original. People have commented before, why don't you ever talk about the Dark Horse stuff? And I guess so far it's just that I'm not that interested in them. I picked up Conan the Road of Kings, which is by Roy Thomas, and that's why I picked it up, because I love Roy's writing so much. And I didn't love it. I didn't feel super inspired to say anything about it. And also my local comic shop, I'm always at Time Warp Comics in Boulder, which is an excellent shop. Really great people there. They only have a couple of these, and none of them are the first volume, so I'm kind of waiting these out. I feel like I'm going to read these eventually, but not until I've kind of read everything else that's on my to-read list. It was fine. It's not Roy's best work. I know I just said I wasn't going to talk about single issues, but I do have a couple of cool ones to share that are vintage magazine-sized books. I've got a couple of issues of Eerie with some really good sword and sorcery stuff. One thing that I wrote in October, I think it was, that I really enjoyed writing, and I think I did a decent job with. I called it Barbarian Vampires in Space, and the story continues from that Eerie issue into a couple other Eries, and I don't have them all yet, but I'd really like to have them at some point. I don't know if you've ever heard of Voltar, but Voltar the Barbarian fucks, dude. He's invented by Alfredo Alcala, who's a Filipino sword and sorcery comic artist, and I cannot tell you how incredible the art on these things are. They look so good. It is some of the best 70s comic art I've ever seen, and it's definitely some of the best sword and sorcery art I've ever seen. Voltar debuts in Magic Carpet #1. I had to buy this thing off eBay, and it wasn't super cheap, but I do love that it has a 75-cent special sticker on it. At one point, it was much cheaper, and you've got Voltar here in his winged helmet. He really just looks kind of like Thor or Conan. If you put Thor's clothing on Conan the Barbarian. That's basically Voltar, but really excellent stories, especially some later stuff that was printed in The Rook, which is a Warren spinoff of an eerie character. I mean, who knows who the Rook is? Nobody cares. But some of the backup stories were Voltar, and they are so incredibly good. You can probably find them online for free, just in PDF form somewhere, but these things are definitely worth a read. And here's my last set. I've been slowly collecting these with absolutely no rush at all, but Marvel has some interesting reprints and originals throughout the 70s and 80s of Conan stuff. I've got this oversized Marvel Treasury edition of Conan, and a couple of the Marvel Treasury editions were focused on Conan, but I picked this thing up in a thrift store in Laramie, Wyoming for like $8 or something. It was really cheap, and it's really cool to see the oversized format and everything. This one has the Song of Red Sonja, which I think is Conan number 24. It has The Night of the Dark God and 3 by Sonja, as well as Black Colossus, embellished by our buddy Alfredo Alcala, who we just talked about. Now, talk about the definition of mixed bag. Marvel graphic novels are something that Marvel put out periodically from the 80s to the 90s, and I think they did 7 or 8 of them were Conan focused, and some of them are really good, and some of them are tremendously terrible. This is my most recent acquisition, Conan the Barbarian in the Skull of Set. This one is by Doug Mensch, who is not usually associated with Conan. He's more of a Batman writer. I thought this one was pretty excellent. I don't know a lot of people who've read this one, so maybe you'll disagree with me, but more than likely you haven't read that one either. The Witch Queen of Acheron was by Don Krar. I think this one has such a gorgeous cover. I love that hoop that the image is in, and then the story itself it's fine, but some of the art is inexcusable in that one. Conan the Barbarian, The Horn of Azoth is pretty cool. This one has kind of a legendary status for Roy Thomas fans because it's basically an adaptation of the script that he and Jerry Conway wrote for the original Conan the Barbarian movie that didn't get used, so he turned it into this comic, and it's okay. Once again, some of the art kind of hampers it. It's very weirdly paced, but it's not a bad time or anything. And if you've seen the Conan movie, it's kind of a fun little like, ooh, what if it had been more like this? I don't know if it really would have helped the movie be better. Like, the movie's fine, but I think a lot of people agree it's not super representative of Conan as a character, and maybe it would have been a little better. And my last one to share with you is Conan the Reaver. This one is once again by Don Krar, and this one is pretty fun as far as the Marvel graphic novels go. I'd say this is maybe the best one, maybe the second best one. I don't know. It's got some kind of weird art in it, but it's a fun time. It's a fun story, even if its cover is not quite as good as some of the other ones. So are there any books that you didn't see in my library that you think I should check out? Let me know, especially if it's in the Conan criticism category. I always really love those. And if this video gets you to check out a used bookstore near you or pick up one of these, then I think I've done good for the world. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.